In this episode of the SimTech podcast, I'm joined by Nicola from Skills to talk about the highly anticipated SimTech Live event. We'll dive into what attendees can expect, the cutting-edge tech on display, and why this event is a must for anyone working in clinical simulation. Whether you're a seasoned technician or just starting out, this episode will give you a sneak peek into the shaping the future of our field. So, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the SimTech podcast. Today I am your host Craig and we're going to be jumping into the SimTech Live. And to help me do that, I've brought along Nicola. Good morning, Nicola. You all right?
Good morning, Craig. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. We've almost got a little bit of sunshine here. I feel like the weather's turned for us up north.
Spring is arriving.
Yeah, who would have thought that, winter would have come to an end?
Finally. Feels like the longest winter ever.
It
Felt
does.
like January was about 12 weeks long, but...
Whereabouts are you, Nicola? I assume you're further down south. Most people are.
I'm in Shrewsbury today, so on the Welsh border.
Yeah, and you got a little bit of sunshine breaking through the clouds.
I have, yeah, unusually, because much like where you are, if you're anywhere near Wales, as anybody might know, then sun isn't really a concept.
Yeah, well, I've heard that there's a little bit of snow forecast later in the week, so
Yeah.
Enjoy it while you can.
I know. To get out there, beware the Ides of March, because it's not over yet. It's coming for us.
Yeah. All right, Nicola, can you give yourself, a little bit of a corporate introduction and introduce yourself formally?
Yeah, so I'm Nicola Cook and I'm the marketing director at Skills. So for those who don't know who Skills are, we're probably one of the youngest healthcare simulation companies in the UK. We started just over 4 years ago. And we've grown really rapidly from a team of 2, and there are now 12 of us. And yeah, we distribute and sell healthcare simulation and clinical supplies equipment into the NHS, universities, and colleges. And over the last couple of years, one of the things that we've been wanting to do is do more for the simulation community. So we're not just distributing products, but we're offering more value to everybody. And that is kind of what we're talking today. That is almost how SimTech Live was born, or the concept of SimTech Live was born. So,
and how long's SimTech Live been going for?
So the first one was last year, last summer, and we hadn't thought about running our own conference before, but we were having a really tired, weary conversation on the way back from Aspie in Brighton back in 2023, and I think a little bit of perhaps post-conference adrenaline gave us a kick in our conversation to think,
making a lot of rogue promises.
Yeah, we could do this, couldn't
Yeah,
we? We could run our own
wrong?
conference, absolutely. And at that point, I was the only marketing person in the company, so it fell onto my shoulders to arrange it. So we started probably in earnest looking at SimTech Live in January of 24, and we thinking, how audacious should we be? We're a 2.5-year-old company. We're one of the babies of the industry. Should we run our own conference? So we decided yes. And then we thought about who should this conference be for? And we instantly all said simulation technicians. We work really closely with SimTechs. And often we find that simulation technicians feel like they're the maligned group of the industry.
Oh yeah, we are completely sulk, don't we? We're so hard done by. No one loves us.
And that is a lot of people's reality, unfortunately. Sometimes as well, they're the only technician in their faculty or in their sim centre, and that can make you feel quite siloed. I know in my previous experience, I used to be a teacher and I was the only person who taught in my phase, and you feel like nobody understands you. Nobody understands what you do. And it's only when something goes wrong that people suddenly notice you're there, because you're doing your work absolutely fine. It's a little bit underappreciated. So it stood out to us that there wasn't enough out there at that point for simulation technicians. And even with the Aspie conference, there is increasingly more for technicians, but it still feels a bit like it's a side project, and there isn't enough there. So that's when we thought, right, we'll do the conference and we'll make it for simulation technicians. But there's absolutely zero point us doing any of this work unless we are making this what technicians want. So that was the starting point, really. We sent out a questionnaire to as many technicians as we possibly could get hold of. We got about 50 or so replies, which was really, really good. And we asked all different kinds of questions, from what time of year would be the best time of year to hold this? Because if nobody can come because they're so
Yeah,
busy at work, there's absolutely
it's
zero
true.
point putting the thing on. To, how are you going to get there? We need to think about transport. Wanted to think about the kind of workshops that people wanted to see, but also the structure of it as well. We've been to lots of conferences. You might be the same, where you feel a little bit like you're being herded like cattle from one session to the next, to the next, to the next. And you never actually get to chat to anybody. You never get to speak to anybody who might have some great ideas or things that you could share ideas with, and people you can connect with. So in thinking about how we were going to structure the day, or the event, it had to really come from the technicians, and it had to be really based on what they wanted to see. So once we got that information back, then we could start to really kind of plan what was going to happen. And we had about 6 months to do it
Well,
in.
that's not a lot of time, really. I mean, it might
No.
seem like a lot of time on paper, but for planning and managing such a quite a large project, it's just not a lot of time at all, is it really?
No, so we had to hit the ground running quite quickly, and venues was the first port of call, really. After getting that feedback back from everybody about how they were going to get there, and we looked at a couple of university sites, but then we went to visit what became the venue, which is the Midlands Air Ambulance HQ. So for people who were there last year, or anybody who's visited, it's in a a slightly strange little place called Cosford, which wouldn't have existed before there was an RAF base there. So anyone who's ever been to an RAF base, it's like a weird little world that exists on its own, with its own shops and its own schools, and it's got a train station there because of the RAF base. And the Midlands Air Ambulance used to just have a little tiny shack on the airfield to for the pilots to run out to the helicopters. And then a few years back, they got some investment, and they had a whole brand new HQ set up, where not only is that the place where the pilots and the crews fly from for their emergency calls, but they have a whole conference space and education space there. And when we went to see it, we were just bowled over and just thought, this is perfect for technicians. There's, it's a great space where we can run workshops, but there's helicopters taking off all the time. Who doesn't want to be part of that? um
Yeah, exactly. Any kind of tech is, we're not just simulation tech, we're any kind of tech savvy.
yeah.
So helicopters, although slightly distracting, I've got to say, when you're trying to give a presentation and a helicopter takes
Yeah,
off.
we had to. In fact, it was the very first thing we did in the conference last year, where we did a welcome talk. And I was just about to say to the workshop hosts, if at any point helicopters take off, you might as well just abandon for a few minutes, because no one's going to pay a blind bit of attention to you. And just as I said that, the alarm started going off. And everybody, they've got a really lovely setup there, where they've got these huge glass windows that look out onto the helipads.
Mm.
So everybody just dives to the helipads to go and see a helicopter. I don't think it matters if you're 5 or 55. If the helicopter's
No,
taking off,
helicopters are always fun, aren't they?
you want to go and see it. So
Yeah, I mean, the only question that remains is that did they get any time on the helicopter? Can I go on it? Can I go on it? I want to go on.
well, we were really, really fortunate on our second day, that the crews had been really busy on the first day that we were there, but on the second day they weren't so busy, so we had a little bit of time. We managed to get out onto the helipads, and a few people did get a chance to go and sit in the helicopter. Not up in the air though, because it costs about £3,500 every time one of those
Yeah.
goes up in the air. So we thought we'd save that for the emergencies, where they're needed, and not have any technicians go up in the air. But I think that was probably one of the favourite parts of the day, for people to be able to go out and have a chat to the crews as well, because the crews are really knowledgeable. Some of them are pilots, some of them are emergency doctors, nurses, paramedics, and I think quite a lot of the technicians really enjoyed chatting to them about their role and what they do
Yeah, I
there.
mean, if you like the MERT team, probably what they're called is they must do some kind of helicopter simulation. So they must be involved in, some kind of tech that they fly around with. I don't know if they've got cameras on board and they can do debriefs. They must be involved in that kind of stuff.
So at the Midlands Air Ambulance base, because they've got an education team that runs simulation courses, not just for their own crews, but more widely as well. They are our charity partner. So if you're ever interested in any courses, head over to their website, quick plug for them, because it's a great training facility. But they've got an immersive room there. So they often use the immersive room to help simulate pre-hospital
Yeah.
simulation.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably one of the most famous pictures from last year is everyone stood on like on the helipad in front of the helicopters.
Yeah, and that was, and to see that picture as well was quite an impressive thing to see, because I think when you're in the midst of planning and running an event like that, you don't quite realize just, I mean, we knew we had 75 people there, but to then see all 75 people and workshop hosts stood outside the helicopters looked like an old-fashioned school photo shoot, just a really cool one with a helicopter in the background. um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that really, when I saw that photo, that was a bit of a wow, we actually did do this, we did deliver what we set out to deliver.
Yeah, so did it evaluate really well last year then?
It did, yeah. So that was so, as well as getting feedback right from the very start to make sure that what we were offering was what technicians wanted, we made sure that we got feedback after the event, and you're never quite sure how these things are going to go. But we were really bowled over by the feedback that we got, almost overwhelmingly positive. And where people had a few, it wasn't even really criticisms, it was just suggestions of, could we do this next year, for the workshops that you, if you're going to do it again, could you have this kind of thing for a workshop? But by and large, everybody really, really loved what we did. And as I said, when we were planning, we wanted to think about what would be the best approach for technicians. And we thought keynote speeches and lectures is not really what technicians want to hear. They're really practical people. We need to make sure we've got some really practical hands-on things for
Mm.
them to do. So that's what we made sure a lot of the workshops had, but also the structure of the day as well. We had a session at the beginning and end of the day where everybody was together. But then we had what we called a carousel of workshops, where 3 workshops were running at the same time and everybody rotated around everything through the day. So you didn't have to choose between things. You didn't have to think, oh, I'm going to miss out if I do.
Oh, I get massive FOMO, just especially at
Yeah.
things like ASPE, where they've put like 6 different things on, and like I want to attend at least 3 of these.
Yeah.
So then you like negotiate with like your team, right? You go to this one, I'll go to this one. You take some notes, but then you've got to
Yeah.
separate, don't you? And yeah, you get massive FOMO from it.
It is hugely, and like you say, you don't want to have to pick and choose between things. So because we were a smaller conference, we could run it like that. And I think that was probably one of the most successful things from last year, and we'll be repeating again this year, is that format, because it just meant that you didn't have to choose, you got to have a go at everything. Um, but we also tried to structure it so that there were some gaps in between the workshops as well, because I think one of the biggest things that you can do when you go to a conference is actually get the chance to talk to people, because
Networking's
often
strong, isn't it? It really
it's
is.
massive. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
massive. And I know that the technician community is pretty strong online anyway. You've got WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups, but there's just something about meeting in person and being able to share stories, being able to share experiences, knowledge, of different approaches or technology that you're using and implementing. So to be able to come off the back of a workshop and have a little bit of time and space to not only chat to people, but to also process a little bit as well what you've learned. Because I know from my experience of going to conferences, sometimes you come back with just tons of ideas, and then the next
Yeah.
day you've experienced so many sessions that you can't really remember what it
Yeah, well,
is that you
exactly, because
saw.
you said it already that because we're solo workers, we're all working autonomously in our little silos,
Yeah,
and you think you're doing it the best way, and then before you know it, someone else has come up with another idea, and you're like, God, why didn't I think of that? That's just so obvious, you
that's
know?
it. And that's, I think, one of the comments we had on the feedback was someone saying it felt like opening, like what's the phrase for the magic circle, like we getting behind the magician's
Yeah,
cloak, like you being able to see,
peeking
like all
behind
the
the
sort of,
curtain.
that's it, peeking behind the
Yeah,
curtain, being able to see like all the different tricks and tips, not just
mm,
from the workshop hosts themselves, but by speaking to each other, just things that, like you say, when you're on your own, you don't know what you don't know. So you start to hear from other people and think, that, yeah, I could implement that, I could do that.
yeah. And it's almost like it's exactly why I've kind of created this podcast, because what you're saying there is kind of one of probably the main goal of the podcast is to, put people in touch with other people. We're interviewing technicians and we're going into their projects. But what you're doing is you're doing a more condensed version, face to face,
Yeah.
people just getting together who have probably been talking via email, via WhatsApp for years, but never put a face to a name. And it's like, oh, look, there you are in
Yeah.
3D. You do have legs. There you go.
Yeah. And I think it's just like you say, once you meet somebody in person,
Mm.
you sort of then strike up those bonds and those links, and you think, actually, I've got somebody there who's got more experience than me, or because I mean, technicians, you have to be jack of all trades. So
Mm.
there's going to be some areas where you're personally really strong, and then other areas where you think, oh, I just don't want to go anywhere near moulage. It's not my bag, or
Yeah,
something like that. But if
I
someone's
kind of
got,
have a theory that each technician has a speciality, and they don't know about this until you're like, oh, but they all have a passion that drives them. So
yeah,
it might be VR, it might be audio, it might be maintenance, and they all have this passion. But with the passion, they also have the hates, or the things that
yeah.
they don't like as much. And for me, it's always been audio. Audio's always kind of caused me problems because it's not something that you can pick up and learn. You're just kind of learning as you go along. But then you meet people at these conferences and at workshops who show how to use microphones and how to use
Yeah.
mixers and those kind of things.
So is that why you're taking on the podcast?
It was a little
Jump straight
project,
into your fear.
yeah, and that's it. If you just face it head on, and
Yeah.
you'll conquer it. That's the only way. All right, so let's get into some of the details that we might have skipped. So this year, what date are we looking at? When do you want to do the SimTech Live?
So SimTech Live is booked in, well ahead of schedule from last year, because we've,
Hmm.
we've done it once before, so we can do it again. So it is Friday the 31st of August. Sorry, Thursday the 31st of August to Friday the 1st. Actually, start again. It is Thursday the 31st of July to
July.
Friday the 1st of August. I pick those days and I kick myself every time because, as you can hear, I can never say it the right way round, and also it makes it sound like it's spread over 2 months, but it
Yes,
isn't.
it's a very,
It's
very long conference.
yeah, it's still a 2-day conference, but it spans from the 31st of July into the 1st of August. And we decided for this year to keep the structure and the venue the same. We had a big discussion as a team as to whether we would change things, whether we would go larger than we did last year, so that the venue itself can only hold up to about 75 to 80 attendees,
Mm.
which obviously means there'll be a lot of technicians who would like to come, and that we won't be able to get everybody in. But for this second round of doing this, we thought, try and keep things as similar as we can, so that what we are improving on then is the workshops and the workshop hosts and the content that people are going to be accessing. But also it would keep that thing that made it quite special, which I think a lot of people picked up on, which was that sense of sort of intimacy. If you have a really massive conference and everybody is spread over several floors in several rooms, you soon lose that sense of it being a community event.
Yeah.
So certainly for the second year of doing it, we wanted to keep it the same.
How are
Um,
you going to prioritize who gets a position then if you're saying there's only a certain amount of seats?
So that's going to be a bit of a tricky one. Thankfully, I'm delegating roles this year, so it's not up to me to pick. But the team are going to the applications for registering for this year's event end on the 31st of March. So if you're interested in joining us, head to our website, simonskills.co.uk. And there's an events page and you can register, so that you're on our list. And what the team are going to do, they're going to go through everybody and make sure we've got as fair a spread as possible across the country and across NHS technicians and university technicians, having a little look at perhaps who came last year, who didn't get to come last year, and try and make it as fair as we possibly can. There will definitely be some disappointed people because we are already oversubscribed, um, which is fantastic. That because last year it was almost trying to beg people to come because
Yeah.
it was a new event and people didn't know what it was. For it to be oversubscribed this year already, even before the closing date, is great. But what we are going to do this year for the first time is to have some live streaming. So we had a platform last year that attendees could access, and it had all of the workshop notes on it. It was like a little community page so people could talk to each other. Um, and also continue the conversation afterwards as well, and be able to access things after the event. But we talked about the fact that there's going to be people who would like to come and not be able to. So we are going to stream as much of the event as we possibly can. And obviously, it's not quite the same as being there, but we want to try and take that community feel that gets generated there, and expand it and extend it as far
Mm.
as we possibly can.
If you're
So yeah,
streaming it, you're going to be recording it as well?
yes, yes. So we'll record, because the events will run in a carousel format. We'll just
Yeah.
follow one of the groups as they go around and be able to record as much as we possibly can, and then people can have access to this platform. They can watch the sessions back afterwards, or they can watch them live as they're being streamed.
Mm.
But we know a lot of people, if they're not coming, they'll be busy working, so they'll be able to watch the sessions afterwards. And then what we do is
How
for
much?
next. Sorry.
Sorry, Nick. I'm just saying, how much does the tickets cost? So if people want to apply, is there any kind of cost associated with
So,
it?
the same as what we did last year, the tickets are absolutely free. So, as a company, we took the decision to pay for this ourselves, and the ticket includes not only the attendance at the event, it also includes a hotel on the Thursday night in between the 2 days. Food all day. We do a barbecue social in the evening. That's all included with drinks, and then we've got coaches that run from the venue to the hotel as well, because there isn't a hotel within walking distance.
Well, that seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah. So yeah, and we it's just something that we wanted to do. Like I said, right back at the beginning, it certainly a passion project of mine is to be wanting to give something back. You know, we work really closely with our customers and work really closely with the industry, and we just want to be seen as a company that does so much more. And we saw this kind of gap where technicians in particular weren't having access to conferences, and we knew that cost was a massive issue and a massive barrier to attendance. And
Yeah.
this year it's even worse.
Well,
You know,
I was thinking the same because a lot of technicians like to go to ASPE, and that on its own can be very expensive unless
yeah.
you've got sponsorship, and they might be lucky enough to get one conference, but then adding another conference in, even with the time off itself, can be quite difficult. But then if you're going to add another cost, it all gets more challenging, doesn't it? So by
Yeah.
you almost sweetening the deal and making it very, very accessible actually for people to attend, and almost giving line managers no excuse to say no, you can't go. I think it's a
And
really
that's the
great
thing.
opportunity actually, and
It I don't think
it's
it was a
very
case.
obvious why you're kind of oversubscribed now. The more that I
Yeah.
talk about it, it's like you're definitely going to be full.
Yeah, that's it. There isn't really anything else like that out there at the moment, and that was also the consideration about keeping the numbers below 100, because if we go above 100, then we would have to review the costs, because this is, it's a big. We're not one of the big guys in the industry. We know we're a small company. There's 13 of us, 12 of us, so we wouldn't be able to do something on, like, an ASPE size and for it to be completely free. But certainly for this year, again, it's completely free. And then we'll have to look at what, for next year. We do want to keep this being an annual thing. It's just whether we
Mm,
can structure it. But I think we would always, even if in future that there has to be a charge, we'd want it to be in kind of a nominal small charge, because we're just so aware, we're having conversations with customers all the time, and there just isn't a lot of money out there, and particularly in
yeah.
HEIs, it's hard going at the moment. And a lot of the technicians that came last year, to be able to come, they had to book annual leave. So even you remove one barrier with the cost, and then the other barrier is actually being allowed to have the time off itself,
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that the workshops were all pitched for technicians, and to have quite a lot of CPD value to them as well. We don't have CPD credits or anything like that, but I think everybody who came last year would agree that there was a lot to take back, to their
Yeah.
organisations, to be able to say this is worth our while coming.
So what's on the agenda this year then? What have you got booked in?
So yes, agenda is almost full. So we listened to some feedback from last year. There wasn't any focus on moulage last year. So we've made sure that this year that we have done that. So we've got some sessions about moulage safety, but we've also got some practical moulage sessions as well, which is great because, like I said, that's taking feedback from what people told us last year. We've got an introduction to 3D printing with a
Wow.
company that we work with called Millennium FX, who create the most unbelievably cool stuff. I think technicians are going to love it. They've come from TV and film special effects, and they're currently working on the Stranger Things musical productions. They make some ridiculously realistic things. They've made things for Call the Midwife. But now they're working with us on healthcare. But they specialize in 3D printing, so they're going to bring some of their kit down so that technicians can see how you can kind of get into that on a smaller scale. We tried to make sure we've got a good mix of our workshops being led by industry experts, but also technicians themselves. So the moulage workshops are run by technicians. We've got a lovely lady called Amber Reed who's coming over from the University of Galway to do a session, and her session's all about equipment maintenance and storage essentials and auditing, and for a lot of people might think, well, that's not particularly exciting, but actually for technicians that is kind of a huge part of your role, being able to have access to things, know exactly where everything is, being able to keep on top of that maintenance, knowing what you've got so that when faculty are demanding things from you, you've got that there. So that's day one, and we finished day one with a similar session to what we had last year. We were very lucky to have Mary Holding and Charles Everard, who are technicians, but they're also on the ASPE exec committee, and they did a big group session with us last year, which was about sort of the problems and issues that technicians were facing, and people were working in groups to kind of work through some of those issues. We've got a similar session, but we've flipped it on its head this year, where we're going to look at technician success stories. So we're going to have a bit of a kind of a technician Q&A with some technicians who are going to talk about some of the big successes that they've had, perhaps sort of personally with their own careers, but also some of the small wins as well, things that they've managed to change within their own organisation that's made their lives easier, made workflows easier. And then that will give technicians a kind of an open space in their groups on tables to be able to discuss their small wins as well, because that's a really powerful thing to
Yeah, it's
take back.
really important.
As we just discussed before, when you're sort of working in a bit of a silo, sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees, and you think, I'm dealing with the same problems all the time. How can I change and improve things? Talking to people and sharing those ideas can be really, really powerful. So I'm really looking forward to that session. And then on day two, we've
Nick,
got
what happens Thursday night, Nicola? Do they? Is there anywhere? Is there anywhere to go?
Oh, I skipped that bit, didn't I? So what we're doing this year is similar to what we did last year. So the air ambulance base has got a really lovely outdoor area where it's got a
Hmm.
covered roof because it poured down with rain last
Oh,
year.
what, you book
We
it in the
was
summer and it rains?
summer. I had this vision of like we get to Thursday night and with this beautiful August sunshine, and it rained, but it was fine because it was undercover. But we had a barbecue. And then we had just lots of drink, so beers and wines and stuff, and just we had some games going on. So the technicians had lots of fun, and then so that will happen again this year. And then the coach comes and takes us back to the hotel, which has a pub there, which I think is a necessity. So, and then from that point, hopefully everybody makes it back onto the bus on Friday morning to go back for day two. Everybody did last year. That was my biggest worry last year. Do I have to go and knock on doors and go and find people? But no, everybody made it back.
Very
Yeah,
grown up.
very grown up. Yeah, I won't comment as to how many of us were left in the bar and to what time we were left in the bar but I had a few regrets Friday morning when I woke
Yeah.
up. I think I'd just gotten to the point of like Thursday was a success and it ran well, and got a bit carried away.
I've got to say, as long as there's no bagpipes, we were suffering from Edinburgh's the night after, and the first thing you hear at 8:30 in the morning is the bagpipes. Yeah.
No bagpipes. I think that's why everybody was quite glad to go out and visit the helicopters, just get a bit of fresh air,
Yeah.
just go and see the helicopters. Yeah, so Thursday, actually, the Thursday night, despite the rain, was really lovely because we wanted to have a fair spread of tickets. A lot of the technicians were the only technician from their organisation to come. So for a lot of people, and myself included, going to something on your own can be quite intimidating, can be quite nerve-wracking. But that was one of the things that we were keen to make sure that it wasn't like that at all. Lots of people were in the same boat, having never been to something like this before and not really knowing many people, or perhaps had only talked to people online. But by the evening, like, people were just chatting away, and it was just so nice to look across the garden and just to see people smiling and laughing and just really enjoying themselves. And so that, it's kind of an extra thing to do, but actually, again, I think it's really important to do because it
Yeah,
helps to.
exactly. And as far as evaluation's nice, but if you've got that gut feeling, where if you just look across and you see everyone having a good time, you
Yeah.
almost know that it's worked, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And then, so for day two this year, we've got a few things that are confirmed. But one of the things I'm really looking forward to is we've got a lady called Juliana Sampson from Coventry Uni who specialises in researching AI. And AI is obviously a hot topic of conversation at the moment. And a lot of
Yeah.
people love it. And a lot of people think it's coming for their jobs and they're really wary of it. But she's going to do a really technician focused workshop all about the importance of humans when it comes to AI and how you need to have human involvement to be able to generate really good AI driven content. So she's going to talk about large language models and what we need to be doing in simulation centers to be able to get the best out of those systems, because they don't run but well, they can run on themselves a little bit, but then they don't produce the best results. They start
Yeah, exactly. So
hallucinating.
we say rubbish in, rubbish out is the
Well,
way that it
exactly,
is.
yeah. So
Yeah.
having those right kind of inputs and knowing how to drive it, and for a lot of technicians, that could be a big part of their role going forward, driving kind of AI built systems. So yeah, so that's going to be a really good session as well. So there's lots of things that are almost there, and I feel really confident about this year's session, this year's event, because at this point last year we hadn't even found the venue. I think we were
Yeah.
just. I think I'd visited two places at this point, so we didn't have venues, we didn't have hotels booked, and luckily now I've got a team with me who I'm able to delegate roles to. So I think the biggest pressure is to make it even better than last year. That's in the back of my head. That's the last year. Last year turned out far better than I could have ever hoped for, really. And like I
Yeah.
said, with the feedback and just seeing everybody enjoying themselves, and that people got a lot of value from it. The challenge this year is to make it just as good, if not better. And the workshop hosts that we've recruited so far, I'm really excited about what they're going to deliver, and I think it's going to be another great event. And maybe we'll even get sunshine this year,
Mm,
which would
bit
be
too much to ask
fantastic.
for. Yeah.
No,
You can't have
yeah,
everything.
no,
Yeah.
no. So
Okay.
yeah.
So you've kind of said, but do you want to reiterate what's the best way to apply then? So is it to go to the Simmons Schools website?
Yeah, so if you visit our website, so simandskills.co.uk, if you go to our events page, in fact, it's on the front page on the homepage. There's a link
Hmm.
because it's got a ticker on it that's been put on, so I can see just exactly how many days we've got left to plan and
Yeah.
execute this event. Yeah, pop on there before the end of the month, before the 31st of March, to register. And then we will be in contact with people who successfully got a ticket in April. And for those who haven't got a ticket, we will have the streaming service and the recordings. But we'll also make sure we've got a bit of a waiting list as well, because people do sometimes drop out.
Yeah,
So
of
it's
course.
always worth. And even though we've gone over, I think we've got 113 people subscribed as of today.
Ooh.
But you don't get put
Yeah.
off by that, because you just, even if you register now, it's not a first come first serve. We are going to look at the list and try to
Yeah.
distribute tickets as evenly, as fairly as we possibly can.
How can people find the streaming link then? Is it going to be on your website as well?
So we will set anybody who's registered, we will send out an email closer to the date, so you've got all the login information to be able to get onto the platform, and be able to access it, and be able to access all the, not just the recordings, but any of the information that the workshop hosts have popped on to there for us, like guides and information sheets, and you'll be able to access those as well, and join in with the conversation. So that what we hope is that after the event, people will still use the platform to watch back the recordings, but to also to communicate with each other, because like I said, that is the biggest thing of SimTech Live, is that sense of community and that connection, and technicians being able to learn from each other.
Yeah, I mean that kind of puts us on to our final thought, because as I knew, Nicola, you'd be fantastic at talking, and our time has already gone. Um, but if there's one thing that we can take away from, or you want people to take away from the SimTech Live, what is it?
I want technicians to know how valued and integral they are to the simulation and the simulation community, and that by coming along to something like SimTech Live is you're almost putting yourself first. Probably something that you don't get to do very often because you're busy looking after everybody else in the sim center. But this is an opportunity to put you first and to learn something that's going to perhaps support you in your day to day job, but it might also give you some career insights as well, and give you a chance to connect with other technicians, so that you feel part of a bigger community.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant line to use on your manager. If they're not going to let you attend for whatever, just say, "Look, put me first for a change." I've been holding this
Yeah.
centre up. I'm a one-man band here. It's time to
Yeah.
let me go.
Yeah. Let me have a nice August break away,
Yeah.
where I can also do some learning.
Yeah. All right, Nicola. Thank you very much for coming along today. It's been brilliant catching up with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Craig. It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I hope that at some point we can have the Sim and Skills team on to talk about, some of the other projects that you're working on, or even if we're
Yeah,
going to dig into some of the equipment, we'd love to,
that'd be
or
great. Yeah.
even maybe a post review of how it actually the event actually went, and if it met up.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
That'd be brilliant. All right, Nicola, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the SimTech podcast. A huge thank you to Nicola from Sim and Skills for joining me today and giving us an inside scoop on SimTech Live. If you're a SimTech educator or just passionate about simulation, this is definitely an event you won't want to miss. Make sure you check out the event details, and if you're attending, just let us know. We'd love to hear for your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes where we explore the latest in simulation. Until next time, keep innovating.